Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's PES Mutual Learning webinar on the subject of PES support to the greening of labour markets. I hope everybody had a good summer. If you've got small children like me, this feels like the start of a new year, even though it's September, so it's not the calendar year, but academically it feels the start of a new year. So I hope everyone's feeling refreshed, and it's exciting to welcome everybody back and to hear all the thoughts and ideas going on around in PES on this subject. Often with subjects, we have to start by saying why this topic is on the agenda. But I think we all know in this case why greening, and particularly here greening of the labour markets in the PES context, is on the agenda. And this is a crucial topic. Obviously, whenever you turn on the news in a global sense and in the EU sense, we know that we've had the launch of the European Green Deal in 2019 and implementing measures presented in the Fit for 55 proposal. In our context, within the PES network, we published a study at the beginning, it was carried out at the beginning of this year, but I think it was published in June, if I'm correct, on greening of the labour market, impacts for the public employment services. And I'm delighted that we're joined today by Nicolas Doul, who is the managing partner of economics, research and consulting, who will be telling us more about the findings of that study, and that will set the frame for today's discussions during the webinar today. We also have two PES represented today. We'll be hearing from colleagues from the Slovenian PES. Sandy Meka is joining us, and he will be talking to us about a newly introduced employment incentive called Green Jobs that they've introduced in Slovenia. And we also have colleagues from France, Vincent McCoy and Delphine Trevet, who will be talking to us about an upcoming bicycle plan promoting cycling professions and jobs integration, and also initiatives in the electricity and gas sectors. So on top of the study that we'll hear from Nicola, we've got these inspiring examples of PES practice from Slovenia and France. And then our final presentation will be from Tim Schreiber, who joins us from the European Commission, DG Employment, who will give us an overview of relevant EU initiatives and possible synergies between the EU level and national initiatives to support skills for the green transition. So we have an hour and a half today, starting at 10 o'clock Central European time, finishing at 11:30. Once I finish this short introduction, I will pass the floor to Nicola, as I say, will give us an overview of the study. We will then have time for some question and answers. So I need to explain to those of you who haven't participated in the webinar before how we're going to operate that. We have a chat box, but we also have a Q&A box. And it's very important that if you want to ask a question to any of our speakers, please, we cannot give you the floor. You won't be able to open your microphones. Everything has to go through the Q&A box. So please post your question in the Q&A. You should see it at the bottom of your Zoom window next to chat. I have it in between the participants tab and the chat tab. It says Q&A. So go in there, post. If it's a question for a specific speaker, please make that clear who your question is for. But also, please feel free to ask questions to all speakers. Then when we get to the question and answer round, either myself or Nicola will look at those and we will choose the questions to ask. So again, please, another feature of the Zoom Q&A box is that you can upvote a question that you want to hear. So please don't repeat a question that someone else has asked. There's no need to do that. You can upvote it so that it rises to the top of the list, and we'll be able to see more easily which of the questions you really want to have answered. The chat box remains there. People are already using it, and that's great. Please do, if you want to react to anything that you've heard, if you want to say hello to each other, keep doing that in the chat box. But we won't be monitoring the chat to ask questions. So only what you've posted in the Q&A box will be picked up to ask our different panelists. We will have a short round of 10 minutes Q&A after Nicola's presentation. Then we will have the rest of the presentations together, and we will group the question and answer session from those three presentations in a 25-minute section after we've heard from all three speakers. But please feel free at any point to post your questions, post it whenever you want, and we'll pick up on it when the time comes. So I think that covers the short introduction. I think everyone is, if it's been a while, for me it's been, I think June was the last time I was in a Zoom meeting, so I've had a nice break, but good to be back, and we'll get back into the swing of things. So I think without further ado, Nicola, we'd love to hear more about this theme, PES support to the greening of the labour markets. As I said, you're the author of the PES Network study on this topic. So for the next 10 minutes, the floor is yours to give us an overview of that study and what you found out. Thank you very much.
As Ed already said, I will not really focus much on it. It's clear we have the Green Deal, we have national policies, we have national programs speeding up the greening of the economy. So the subject comes very timely also for the recovery, but also from a long-term view. So it's not only for this recovery. So one of the key issues for greening the labor market is that we do not really fully know what exactly we are talking about. Because everybody has its own definition on green jobs, and so there is no common definition across member states. A few member states have made a distinction between green and greening jobs or hybrid jobs, for example, France and Italy. So this has an impact on the assessment of how many green jobs there are out in the economy. And assessments vary between 0.3% or 8% of those employed. And that is not only due to different structures of the economies across member states, but also to the different definitions and ways to measure green jobs. And greening jobs even go up to 14% of all employed. So you see, it's not a marginal issue. In fact, if you think about wider objectives and jobs occupation, which helps and task to reach these wider objectives towards greening of the economy. So what are studies and forecasts telling us? So is that very detrimental for the labor market, or are there perhaps even big opportunities? So studies and forecasts, either the topic they have, is it only about the ecological transition in general, the circular economy in particular? So all studies have one thing in common, is that there will be no really big employment effects in terms of volumes. So even slightly positive employment effects are forecasted, or neutral employment effect, depending on the study. However, employment impact varies across sectors. For example, agriculture, food sectors, energy, construction, automotive, waste management would be typically sectors affected, and regions where these sectors play a role, and the production processes which are implemented. So what will be really feasible are shifts across sectors and occupations. So this means that an increased mobility of workers within companies, within sectors, across sectors and occupations will take place. So what does that mean? That means that for skills development mainly, there is a need for support to occupational mobility. So mainly this requires only small adaptations of skills, both generic and technical skills. In some cases, upskilling or reskilling measures will become necessary. New occupations may emerge, and some occupations will not be in demand anymore. There is in general an increased need for IT skills. So the greening will go hand in hand, in fact, with the digitalization, and this gives technical possibilities. And the short term, there is a need for adapting skills, mainly for low skilled and medium skilled workers in a number of countries and sectors. And there is a trend towards a rising skills level in general for green and greening occupations. So what does this mean for public employment services, given these big picture of the key issues? is, of course, first of all, to grasp the structural changes, to really understand at the local labor market, at the regional labor market, what the challenges are. Identify the skills needs for the greening of the local or regional or national economy, identify the transferability of skills from one sector to the other and from one occupation to the other, mitigate negative employment effects. So for some labor market segments and local areas, there is a risk of skills mismatch, which can pave the way towards structural unemployment. So it's important to understand and to this well in advance. And also for managing the labor market transition, there are a couple of challenges. So as I said, the main thing is really the transition between sectors, between occupations. So what are the main challenges? The one is that older workers are overrepresented in polluting industries. So those are those who are most likely to lose their jobs, and transition for them will be difficult. Then there are issues with the job quality and working condition in some of the green economy subsectors. Women are underrepresented in green jobs now. That is what statistics tell us in countries where we have these statistics. And in most countries, there's a gender divide regarding advanced IT and technical skills. Endowing low-skilled workers with technical and generic green skills is a specific challenge, and a vocational guidance for adults and support to small and medium-sized enterprises. In general, there is also the challenge to reduce the labor shortage of green jobs and green skills. So what have public employment services done so far? So there are some examples which have been set in place over the last decade or over the last 2 decades, and more prominently very recently. So what are PES doing for now across Europe? So PES are identifying occupational profiles for green jobs, and linked to that, try to improve information on occupations and provide vocational guidance. So we find examples, for example, in Austria, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain for this type of activity. Then other public employment services have not set up yet specific activity, but rely on a high level of experience in upskilling and reskilling and facilitating the mobility between the different occupations and tasks. Some PES have elaborated strategies and have built up partnerships at the local level, and I think we will hear some examples later on. Some PES have implemented sector-specific measures. So in the context of the circular economy, for example, or in the context of nature protection, just to give some examples. But a number of public employment services have not started yet to have really a strategy about it. So they might do something, they might have small programs, but they have not yet elaborated really a strategy. So, as I said, many PES have low-scale measures, sorry. And in a wider environment, we see a number of countries where green skills are being integrated into the vocational education and training sector, a system. But few PES only have started to implement specific training programs to support the ecological transition at the labor market. And we might want to discuss whether this is necessary or not, and what can be done here. A few PES have started to provide training to their own staff to have the right awareness and to be able to give the right guidance. And what I think is very important are some examples of PES working in partnerships with a variety of actors and a variety of issues. So these actors can be at national, regional, or local levels, The subjects can be around labor market information systems, for example, or sector policies at local level, for example, in the context of coal mining, exit strategies in Germany and Spain and Poland, for example, just to be a bit more illustrative. So I have a set of recommendations coming out from the stock taking and the analysis of key issues, challenges, and the experiences of activities PES have already done. So I'm going through the set of recommendations now. So one recommendation is that PES really have to adapt their strategies to the local and regional labor market context, because labor markets are endowed with different types of skills, with different types of workers, with different sectors and activities on their ground. And the pathway toward the greening will depend on a lot of issues, but also with these endowments and what you find here. So in principle, you can find, we try to elaborate kind of a typology of what type of greening there are, or greening labor market scenarios there can be. And we could distinguish between a technology intensive greening of the labor market, or a labor intensive pathway, for example, in agriculture, for example. Disruptive greening labor markets, when you have to close down coal mining, for example, or other polluting industries, repair and preserve greening labor markets. And evolutionary greening market, where we would say you have not one specific sector predominating, but it's going transversal through all tasks and sectors. So this requires improving the labor market information systems, close cooperation between the PES and other partners specialized in identifying the transferability and the portability of skills, and close cooperation between PES and employers, sectoral association, training institutions, just to give an idea of who are the important actors who help to identify the skills needed and also the transferability of skills. So to make the most use of what people already have acquired in terms of skills throughout their working life. So in terms of skills development, then still for the PES, very important skills profiling of each worker or job seeker, identifying the transferable skills, providing vocational guidance, but also providing short and long upskilling and retraining measures at all skills level, including also for the low skilled, and promoting the enrollment of women in STEM fields, so in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields, to be sure, on the one hand side, to close the skills gaps and labor shortages, and also to give them, to not lose them on the way, and give them equal opportunities to take advantage of the new employment opportunities out here. So in terms of placement activities, which are key to public employment services, using technology and improving the skills taxonomy, cooperating also with private employment services, private job portals, for example, are advertising on green jobs and also do their own research on what the green characteristics of jobs are, and actively collecting vacancies in the area of green economy through the cooperation, again, with employers and employers federation, chambers of commerce, etc. Then from the traditional active labor market policy measures public employment services have, they can use it to link employment incentives to specific activities, to green and to support the greening of the economy. Some, as always has been, can also be linked for disadvantaged group and link them to activities in the green economy, for example, in terms of job creation measures. And for displaced workers who cannot upskill and reskill, employment incentives and startup incentives may be necessary in all sectors and not only in the green economy, of course. So this already gives an impression of what is also really necessary, is that there is enough resources for the required human capital and social investments which are required to accompany the ecological transition. So the good news was it is possible to accompany it. It does not be a disaster for the labor market, but it requires, of course, investments to do these in a proper way. So PES should make sure that the national governments are aware that managing labor market transition requires additional investments. This relates to income replacement during job search, research on skills and taxonomy, skills development, active labor market programs. Yes, and also that the PES staff would need more training and higher awareness to use all available information on greening jobs and skills. So that's it from my side. So happy to get your questions, and many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Nicola, for that excellent overview. And it's given us a great framework, I think, as well for the discussions in today's webinar. Just to pick up on a couple of practical points, the report that Nicola has been presenting is available in the PES Network Knowledge Centre. I think what a colleague has already shared a direct link to that document. I'm just posting in the chat now a link to the Knowledge Centre itself. Don't hesitate to go there, download the report. You can also find other reports that have been produced by the PES Network in previous months and indeed previous years, if you want to go back through the history. And also there was a question about the presentations. All presentations today will be sent to participants afterwards, made available on the CircABC platform, and you'll be provided with a link to that. And indeed, a recording of the seminar will also be made available to you. So don't worry about frantically taking notes of everything that you hear. If you'd like to just listen, you'll always be able to go back and listen again. That said, we just have a few minutes for a couple of questions that have been posted to Nicola. We'll try and get through as many of these as we can. The first one, Nicola, is about skills shortages. The observation that skills shortages are increasing in many sectors, and a question about what can this mean for the green transition of the labour market. You were able to tackle that question first, and then we'll come back to some more.
So the question was on skill shortages and the specific.
Yeah, what's the impact of skills shortages on the green transition, or the potential impact? What does that mean for the green transition?
I mean, on skill shortages in general slow down or hinder the economic activity. So if we have skill shortages, the greening as such will be slowed down somehow. Of course, this could, on the one hand side, have the effect that there is perhaps an even stronger drive to find technological solution instead. So in order to replace the workers which are not there, that is one possibility which could happen. So that would mean that the kind of technology driven pathway would kind of be reinforced. But as a general rule, I think it is one of PES tasks to overcome also the skill shortages.
Okay, thank you very much. And then there's another question which I'm going to summarize. It's been there's a slightly longer text in the Q&A box. It comes from an ecological economist researching sustainable work at the Vienna University of Economics. And the point, as I understand it, is essentially that the situation is actually a lot more dramatic than maybe this report and indeed other reports imply. That the green development of green technology and decoupling of emissions are going at just a too slow a pace to really meet the challenge being faced and avoid dangerous climate change. So the question on that is, are PES at national level really facing the repercussions of the reality of the Paris goals and the reality of the challenges, the extent of these challenges? Are PES able to, are they facing up to that reality?
I mean, as for forecasts, it's always, I mean, forecasts are forecasts. They try to find possibilities to assess the effects and the impact of something. Of course, if you change some assumptions, you will find it's a storytelling somehow, and you can have other assumptions telling you other effects. So of course we do not for sure know whether there will be more dramatic effects. This is on the one hand side, but what we can see that there have been a couple of studies showing that the effects are seizable in terms of transitions, but not in terms of volume. So that is an old discussion we have also with the impact on digitalization on the labor markets and so on. Of course, we could spend hours and hours to discuss that, but given the assumption, if there is more disruption on a labor market, of course, then the PES can interact in terms of repair, mitigate a bit, but of course the PES cannot be the only actor in this game. And certainly other actors and other investments would be necessary. And I think this is one of the reasons why I really try to stress that partnership approaches are really essential, and cooperation with other actors. So not to see PES in isolation. I think what we see today often is that you have the environmental ministry doing one thing, the labor ministry doing other things, some actors reacting, helping web system to include the greening or not. And often it seemed to me that there is not everywhere or mostly not a very strong cooperation between these different aims. And I think if the labor market impact is definitely becoming bigger, given this assumption, I think this was the assumption of the question, then these cooperation would need to be reinforced even more. And of course, other investments made in the education sector, and also for the sectoral policies in general. So I think the PES you can also not expect too much in terms of solving of the problem, but of course the PES would need, and that is perhaps referring to the last slide of my recommendation, would need more resources to cope with it. That is for sure.
Thank you very much, Nicola. There's what has been described as a slightly provocative question that I think I will come back to in the question and answer after we've heard now from our speakers. The question there is about some of the recommendations around better information, capacity, gender, closer collaboration between stakeholders. We are kind of known topics, and so the question is what's really new and different around about PES work and the green transition. But maybe you can answer that question after we've heard from our speakers. And there was also there's a couple of questions, quite specific questions about investments in training. Have countries already made such investments? Do you have any figures or reports on this yet? Maybe, I don't know if you were able to answer that directly. You can type the answer, Nicola, if you're able, in the Q&A box whilst the other speakers are speaking, and more questions are appearing, but I do want to bring in our other speakers, and then we'll have a chance to open up again in half an hour, and we can pick up on some of those topics. So thank you very much for that so far, Nicola, and we'll hear again from you in a bit. But now, I mean, some people are already asking, okay, so what does this mean for PES, and what are PES really doing? So now is the time to bring in two of our public employment services who have kindly agreed to come and share their inspiring examples today. And so we'll get a flavour for some of the things that are going on out there, and people can hear a little bit more about what's happening on the ground. So first of all, from ESS, the Slovenian PES, Sandy Meka is going to, as I said earlier, be talking about a newly introduced employment initiative called Green Jobs. So Sandy, we look forward to hearing about this, and the floor is yours for the next 8 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and let me say hello to all of my colleagues all across Europe. Now, today, I'm going to present the Green Job Employment Incentive we have in Slovenia. But before I do that, I would like to talk about the bigger picture in question. Presently, environmental and climate issues seem to be the challenge of our generation. And honestly, in the past, I don't think we really saw that as a past topic. But things are changing. Europe is on a new course of recovery, and PES will need to support this transition to a greener economy and the greening of the labor market. And I would like to say our PES is a leader in this field, but sadly we are not far from it. But still, I think we have a small example which we would like to share with you and tell you what we learned from it. So in the beginning of this year, Employment Service of Slovenia launched a green job employment incentive for employers. Now, this incentive was developed in cooperation with the Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning, which is not a very typical PES partner, or they weren't so far. And this small-scale pilot project was financed by the Climate Change Fund, which was also something new for our PES. Now, the incentive is quite high compared to other incentives for employers in Slovenia. The application needs to be filled online only. The contract needs to be permanent. But what's typical for this incentive is that it's intended for employment of all unemployed, as long as it's employment in a green job. So usually we, in our public employment services, focus on a target group of unemployed, but here we have an incentive which rather focuses on the job itself. And of course, the hardest question to answer was, which job is a green job? There are a lot of definitions out there. They are all perfectly reasonable and understandable until you have to use them in practice and decide this employer gets the incentive and this employer doesn't. This job is green and this one is not. So it was really important for us to devise an operational definition which we could use in practice. And we did it with the help of the Ministry of Environment. So we took a look at every job from different angles, and we rated each job in different specific categories. So we looked at the occupation and the activity of the employer, since some may be greener than others. We looked at the product and the service of the company and to see if they somehow contribute to climate and environmental goals. We took a look at the workplace activities, whether they contribute to these goals. And of course, some employers hold different so-called green certificates, and they could also gain points in that areas. Now, my time is limited, so I think it's best if we look at two practical examples. First, we have an example of an employer who applied for this subsidy, and they are from the wood processing industry, which is quite important in Slovenia. We know we have green jobs in that area, in that sector, and we would like to promote them and develop them further. And this employer wanted to employ a wood processing plant operator. And because the occupation itself and the activity of the employer is considered as green, it was quite easy for this employer to get the subsidy. But then we asked ourselves the question: is a green job really just a job in a green in a green sector? We think that that is not the case. So let me give you another example. Here we have a hotel who applied for this subsidy to hire a hotel receptionist. So again, tourism is usually not seen as a very green activity because it can be quite taxing on the environment. But this hotel really put in the extra effort, to be friendlier to the environment. They hold different certificates, such as a zero waste certificate, bio-hotel certificate. They have an environmental management system in place. They offer eco-tours for their guests and so on. So we kind of rewarded that, this extra activity of this employer. And through this, let's say, by going the extra mile, they met the criteria of this incentive and got the subsidy. So in short, what were the lessons we learned with this incentive? First of all, it's a global issue, and you have to cooperate with different stakeholders. For us, it was really important to get the Ministry of the Environment on board because they helped us define what are green jobs, so which certificates are green, and so on. Secondly, it was extremely important to build awareness among our employees. Our colleagues, are our ambassadors. They are the ones speaking to the unemployed, to employers. So we really needed to focus on the topic of the green transition and green jobs and speak to them about it, so they were able to focus on it during their daily work. Thirdly, it was important to have a good information campaign. Especially employers are simply not focusing on this subject. They are not even aware they have any, let's say, green potential in their jobs. So it was really important to speak to employers and their associations about these subjects. Of course, there was some negative impact from the COVID-19 pandemic. For instance, we really wanted to focus more on tourism, but because of all the closures, they were really not hiring. So I think this will be an area we can focus on more in the future. But in the end, I guess the most important thing for us was to have a very hands-on green jobs operational definition we could use in everyday work. And for us, it was really important that this definition was really broad, so that we could also include your not very typical, green employer, because as it was said, we are not just talking about, the green economy, we are also talking about greening the existing jobs and activities. So it's a really small example of what we do. Hopefully, you can use the lessons we learned when you do something similar in your public employment service. So with that thought, I would like to conclude my short presentation.
Thank you very much indeed, Sandy. That was great. And if anyone has questions for Sandy, please post them in the Q&A box. But we'll pass straight on now to hear from our colleagues who joined us from France, from the Public Employment Service there, Pôle Emploi. Is Vincent McCoy and Delphine Drevet, who will together present to us that the bicycle plan, as it's named, which is quite intriguing. So I look forward to hearing about the bicycle plan and also some initiatives in the electricity and gas sectors. So Vincent and Delphine, I don't know which one of you is going first, but the floor is yours for the next 8 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to share with my mission with you this morning. Thank you, Chiara, for the presentation. I'm Delphine Drevet. I'm project manager in professional and ecological transition. I'm sorry for my strong French accent this morning. It's not great. This next slide, please, Chiara. Professional and ecological transition, it's perfect to pass after Nicolas, because his studies recommendation are in the heart of my actions. So my challenge in Pôle Emploi Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes is securing and accompanying the transition, professional and ecological, and specifically my collaborators in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, in regional and local area. Next slide, please. So few words in my regional strategy. Pôle Emploi Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes is organized in priority sectors. It's called domaine d'excellence. There are 12 sectors because need skills in these sectors and many job opportunities. For example, these sectors, you find energy, industry, agriculture, care, anyway. And my mission, it's a transversal mission in the green transition. So 3 targets in my actions. First, making sure the professional transition between sector who lost jobs and sectors win jobs, and specifically green and greening sectors. So focus on transversal and transferable skills is in the heart of my action. It's a very complex question because you help my agencies, help my collaborators to identify these skills, transversal, transferable, and soft skills, to anyway skills needs to greener economy. It's very ambitious, it's very complex, but I try it in my mission. Promotion and communication, and finally accompany Pôle emploi agencies and collaborators in this labor market transition, like in the labor market transformation, like greener economy. Concretely, the scopes of my missions are to form my team project, green team project in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, and build a partnership in the local and regional areas with training partners, company partners, business partners, association, and specifically in sustainable and social economy. Created green transition toolkit, with ambitious to promote and sensibilization in green and greening sectors like energy, organic fooding, organic agriculture, bicycle. It's my passion. So this toolkit help my agencies and my collaborators to to accompany you in employing people to greening jobs. It's just the presentation of green and greening jobs, green and greening sectors, just promote and communication than my collaborators. Organization of green events next week with Vincent, we do during the European Sustainable Development Week 4 webinars, digital events related to these topics: energy transition of building, energy, start business in countryside, and bicycle and train opportunity in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. And just to finish my presentation and focus on upcoming projects, my bicycle plane, I'm very happy to carry this plane. It's plane in 2 times. First time is promotion and sensibilization, job advisors to cycling profession and job opportunities in these sectors in regional and local area, specifically in Lyon, in Metropole of Lyon. And the second time in this plane is organization in meet job dating, in order to better meet companies' needs and building a career, the bicycle career, to people, employment and unemployment people, and specifically people far from employment, in creating inclusive jobs. So it's all for me. Now, Mr. Energy in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, Vincent McCoy, my colleagues.
Yes, thank you, Delphine. Hi, everyone. How do we do? Yeah, we go on. Okay. As Delphine said, I'm also pleased to participate to this this webinar, and it's a good opportunity for us to show what we do. Just telling, it's these are a couple of examples. We just wanted to show how we work on the on these fields of greening jobs, green and greening jobs. For me, when I started my mission as an energy job project manager, the first thing was to the first difficulty was to make the topic understandable, attractive, and accessible, because as well as job seekers and job counselors, not too many people know what we're talking about the energy field. So all this implies to meet a lot of professional stakeholders, companies, education centers, professional union, etc., etc. So how do we work on this? As Delphine said, we in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, in our region, we have a specific budget for a specific target of job seekers, which are generally the unqualified people, the young people, the isolated women. It's an example, but it's very difficult to go back to work in some conditions. And you also have the welfare beneficiary. How do we do this? Is we try to connect with the specific needs of the job market. So it's meanwhile, so you have to meet some actors, some stakeholders in the industrial sector and the climate engineering, for example. And as Nicolas said a bit before, the key for the success is building and strengthen partnerships between cooperation and partnerships between different players. So I have a couple of examples of what we do. First, the first project, which is very interesting, and it's we actually at the state where we have to financially build the project, which is pretty expensive, I got to say. It's La Route du Gaz, the gas road. It's a training program in cooperation with the French Gas Association, l'Association Française du Gaz. So the objective of this is to aim is to make understandable what are the jobs in the gas field, which implies you know, distribution, transportation gas, but also the biogas, methanisation, all this and hydrogen as well. So all this field. One of the difficulties of this project is that we are still with this specific target of job seekers. So sometimes we have to go back to you know, how do you say, so some vocational skills. And you have to work on this before working on technical skills, and that's one of the big challenge of all this. Hydrogen. So hydrogen, Pôle Emploi has a partnership with the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes Regional Council in order to provide industrial skills for a company named Symbio. Symbio is an industrial medium-sized company not far from Lyon, which makes some hydrogen motors for professional mobility. So this partnership was, for example, providing some candidates for a big educational program that is almost finished for now, but has been during a year, so it's very ambitious. Also, another project is Énergie au féminin, women in energy, because this is also a big topic. It's the lack of women in the technical fields in industry in general. So so in cooperation with big and less big companies near Grenoble, we're trying to make some sensibilization around these technical jobs and some recruitment meetings. So and the last project I was talking about, I wanted to talk about, was the photovoltaic system professional, because here we went in cooperation with the French Electricity Union. We saw that there was a lack of skills in the photovoltaic field, especially when it comes to the installation and maintenance. So this is a partnership. It's just a test for now on, because we don't really know yet if this is going to be a real market, a real job market. We're still waiting and to see how it works. So so that's it for now on.
Thank you very much indeed to both of you for that presentation, those interesting examples. There was also a comment in the in the Q&A box a reflection about some other regions of France and some of the challenges they're facing. In fact, in general, I think there's some really interesting and provocative questions appearing in the Q&A, really challenging everyone and kind of reflecting the seriousness of the challenge and the urgency to speed up efforts on greening the economy, which hopefully the work of the PES Network can contribute to. That said, we have one more presentation before we go back to those questions and start looking into some of those issues in more depth. So our final speaker is Tim Schreiber from DG Employment, the European Commission. And Tim will be presenting to us some relevant EU initiatives and perhaps how they connect with some of the national initiatives that we're hearing about and others. So Tim, for the next 8 minutes or so, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Ed. Good morning from my side. I'm happy to be here and give a quick overview of what we as the European Commission are doing with regard to skills for the green transition. My name is Tim Schreiber. I'm a policy officer working in DG Employment, and skills for the green transition are one of my main files. So I think we heard a lot about defining skills for the green transition, how difficult it is in practice, and I'm very inspired by the very concrete examples from Slovenia and France that we have just heard, which show how concrete these things are on the ground. However, I think it's important to quickly start with our understanding of these skills, because as was rightly said, there is no common definition. There is not even a common term. Some people refer to green skills. Us, we rather refer to skills for the green transition, because we see that very often the skills that are needed for the transition are not generically green, but are very often skills that are already in the labor market, but now need to be applied in a different context. So for us, there are three different dimensions of the skills needed for the green transition. There are the technical skills. To take the previous example, for example, someone working in photovoltaic who needs to really have a very occupation-specific professional skill to respond to the green transition. Then there are the so-called transversal skills, in our understanding, professional skills still, but that are not occupation-specific, but transversal. We also heard about this before, STEM skills, for example, IT skills. And then there is a third dimension, the so-called citizenship skills, which are skills that are not labor market related directly, but are more for all the citizens. Here it's more about raising awareness about climate change, about environmental friendly behavior. Our colleagues in CEDEFOP have provided a definition of green skills a few years ago. And also this definition reflects a bit what I said before, that it's both about knowledge and abilities on the one hand, so let's say more hardcore skills, and then on the other hand, values, but also attitudes towards greener behavior. One thing, one exercise, one initiative from EU level that I think is very important also for you and complementary to what is done on national level is the CEDEFOP work on skills intelligence. Because in our view, skills intelligence is a very important starting point to design training programs for the green transition. Because first of all, we need to understand what will be the needs in terms of skills in a few years from now, because of the green transition, but also because of the digital transition, for example. And in this sense, skills intelligence provides a very important insight. And what our colleagues in CEDEFOP found with regard to the employment impact of the European Green Deal until 2030 is basically in line with what we heard also before from the study, namely that there are a few sectors that will clearly gain or lose in terms of employment. We see, not very surprisingly, I would say, mining, manufactured fuels who will lose in terms of employment. Another sector like waste, sewerage will clearly gain. But I think what is most important and what also became obvious in the previous contributions is that most sectors will not experience a considerable loss or gain in terms of employment, but rather a change of the tasks within existing occupations. We heard the hotel receptionist who will not need to reskill in the sense of changing completely the sector or the occupation, but here it's rather really about adding specific skills to the skills set that people have, that workers have. And I think that is also where public employment services play a very important role to provide this reskilling of people that are in a specific job and that will also stay in this job. Now, to become very concrete, there are, of course, many different initiatives on EU level that are related to the green transition and to skills in the green transition. We mentioned the very high level initiatives like the European Green Deal, the Fit for 55 initiative. We have many sectoral initiatives, for example, regarding the circular economy. But today I would like to focus on last year's skills agenda, where we presented 5 very concrete actions how to support the green transition. And I saw that previously in the chat box, there was already a vivid discussion about the taxonomy of green skills. And actually, this is one of the actions under the skills agenda to better define a taxonomy of skills for the green transition. And our colleagues who work on the ESCO taxonomy are following up on this action. There will be a big update of the ESCO taxonomy database end of this year. And as part of this update, 91 new green skills will be added to ESCO. However, I would like to say that already today in the existing ESCO database, there are 236 skills that are labeled as green and that give an idea about what we can understand as a green skill. And of course, if the colleagues who are exchanging messages in the chat, if they would like to get in touch with my colleagues who work on ESCO, I'm happy to establish some contacts between you. Just let me know afterwards. Then the second action under the skills agenda is to agree with member states on a set of indicators to monitor the development of green skills. And here we are faced with a challenge that there is no common definition of what are green skills. There are no available data EU-wide on green skills. And therefore, my colleagues in the Joint Research Center are currently carrying out a project which starts from the changing tasks and occupational level to build a conceptual framework of green skills. And then in a second step, based on this work, also to develop indicators. Thirdly, colleagues in Directorate General Education and the Joint Research Center are working on developing a European competence framework on education for climate change. Some of you might know some of the existing competence frameworks, for example, the digital competence framework, which was a big success in defining different levels of digital proficiency. And we hope that with this new European competence framework for climate change, we will also be able to provide better ideas and reduce a bit this blurriness that is still out there when we talk about green proficiency, green competencies. Fourthly, we are working on identifying a core green skill set for the labor market to guide training. I think this is also very important and very relevant for PES. We are currently looking into how we can support this action through Erasmus+. But I think in general, this action is closely related to many different initiatives from the Commission. Just to name 2 upcoming proposals from the Commission, the individual learning accounts and the micro-credentials, which both aim to empower individuals to learn lifelong throughout their career. I mentioned before that it will be important to add on specific skills throughout a career, and the micro-credentials, for example, aim to better value and recognize the outcomes of short courses which aim to actually equip workers with very specific skills. And we hope that with a minimum definition, with minimum requirements for micro-credentials on European level, we will help to better to also encourage people to take part in these short courses, because as was rightly said, what is needed is very often just to add very specific skills, not to get a new degree. But this is of course difficult if you are in a job, if you have a full-time job. When do you have the time to do this training? So I think, with our initiatives, we try to also provide support there. And last but not least, we also aim to help integrating environmental and climate considerations into education and training in general, including professional training. And this action is closely related to the upcoming Council recommendation for sustainable education, where at the moment the open public consultation is still ongoing until next week, until the 24th of September. So also here, if you would like to make a contribution, or if you would like to promote the open public consultation, it's still open until next week. And then we expect a proposal to be adopted by end of this year of this recommendation. These were 5 very concrete actions that we are following up now. But of course, one additional area where the EU level, I think, provides very concrete support is through our funding. There is an unprecedented amount of money out there because of the recovery and the resilience facility. We also have the traditional EU funding instruments, the European Social Fund, but also the Erasmus Plus, for example. And of course, green transition and digital transition are priorities of all our funding instruments, because we think that also to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, it will be important to support digital and green transitions. And for this, in our view, it is important not to leave people behind, but to make sure that everyone is equipped with the skills needed to also succeed in this transition. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions after.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim, for that overview, and great that you were already able to pick up on some of the conversations going on in the chat around the skills taxonomy. For example, I noticed also in the chat the observation that the Swedish Public Employment Service is chairing a taxonomy working group in the PES network, which is exactly at the moment looking at this topic of green jobs and skills in relation to labour market taxonomy. So lots of work going on. I think everyone's aware that we haven't yet got all the answers. But in that context, there are quite, as I said earlier, some quite provocative questions going on in the chat, some challenging questions. Nicola, we have about 20 minutes to have an hour kind of a quite open discussion, picking up on some of the questions in the chat box, maybe any questions that you would like to ask panelists. I promised that we would come back to this first provocative question around what is really new and different. You know, some people I think have a sense of, and I think we see this in lots of contexts, people say we've been talking about climate and greening for a long time. Yes, there's a sense that the urgency is increasing, but you know, what are we really, you know, what's there at the really exciting and new and different about PES work in this context? I don't know if we're able to talk to that for a couple of minutes and then open up the discussions. Challenging, I know, but Nicola, I'll pass the floor to you for the next 20 minutes to manage this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Perhaps I jump in with this provocative question, which I have not responded on the Q&A, because at the first sight, of course, you can say PES is business as usual. You need to bring people into a job, and you need to adapt workers to their skills. And but there is a but. So business as usual, yes and no, because what is changing are the topics and the way of the changing labor market. So if we believe the forecast saying that it's not that much a question of numbers of unemployed rising, but it's more a question about preventing unemployment and adapting skills, closing skills gaps. So the focus changes a bit. Of course, there has already been a discussion about putting a bigger impetus on skills. That's true, but as we have seen with all the work needed on the skills taxonomy, on identifying which are the green skills, in which sectors, in which labor market context, combined with which type of production processes. I mean, it can be labor intensive, can be technology intensive, or that will depend from a lot of different factors, meaning that there is a lot of work to do in this area, and that is, I think, the message to get through. And the message is also to get through with the gender, that as a matter of fact, women are really, in most countries, very badly represented in IT professions and engineering professions. And these are, when we look at the higher skills, and certainly those professions which will be more in demand. So not only through the greening, but also through the digitalization. So again, it is a double challenge, reinforcing each other, but which mean that perhaps shifts of focuses may be necessary. We know that this has been a difficult area for many years, but perhaps more innovative actions and a greater focus need to be put on this type of issues. And the partnership, again, of course, it was discussed for a very long time, but I think through the examples of Pôle emploi, we have seen how important these partnerships are. And I take one of the other question of the Q&A, can you give a concrete recommendation on training? No, I cannot give, and as such a study could not give, because it's so different from the local labor market context, from the type of industry, the production processes, the type of skills people bring with them, and so on. So there is no general recommendation which type of skills. So that has to be explored and understood at the local or regional labor market context. But perhaps following up on this discussion, I think in the Q&A there was one comment from another Pôle emploi region, which is in the industrialized area of Marseille, which in southern France, coping with the closing down, or perhaps the one-day closing down of polluting industries, and asking somehow also the colleagues for Delphine Drevet and Vincent McCoy to what can be generalized from your experience, what could be relevant perhaps for them, but also for a wider audience. I give you the floor on this question. And please, if you have to add anything on these first provocative question, I think it was perhaps addressed to everybody, please feel free also to answer that one.
Okay, so I'll start about just the question from Francine Ducrot. Bonjour, Francine. So yeah, we have a couple of actions from my part. I have a couple of actions that are aimed to be duplicated in other regions, and especially the gas road and the photovoltaic system professionals. Here we're working on how do you say, on the little example. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say, but this is just a test for especially for the French Gas Association or the French Electricity Union, so that after this, if it works in our region, then we can duplicate this with in other region. The funny thing is that in Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, it's our ex director who is now over there. So I think he has this the same organization with the DOMEX, which are not called DOMEX, but the Expertise d'Avenir, I think, future expertise, and so this is going to be. I think so, about the same organization. So, but of course, with Francine, we're going to be in touch pretty soon, I guess, because I think we're gonna send a mail and see how we can work this between regions. So, from my part, that's it.
So for my bicycle plane, so it's possible to duplicate in other region, on other country. Just the bike is anywhere. So just integrate local partners and local industries is very important, because different areas in France and Europe. So electric bicycle, it's in solution too. In also the specifically area, and Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, I'm happy to talking about this plane, real plane of green industry in Martigues. It's a fossil energy, high polluting energy, and PACA, Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, have a real plane of green industry, and you are happy to talking about this.
Okay, thank you very much for your two answers. Perhaps I would give Sandy the same possibility to respond from what his experience. He could kind of give all other PES which are here some insights of what you think is it duplicatable, and what are your experiences, perhaps also with the local partnerships. Is that easy? Is that not easy? What could be a general recommendation for your colleagues from your experience?
Well, I come from services for employers, so we like to keep things very simple and practical. There is a very short attention span with my customers. So what I would like to emphasize at the end of this webinar, we've talked about green jobs, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and then suddenly everything went quiet. I remember that really specifically, and one of the reasons for that is that there are so many goals our public employment services have. We're talking about long-term unemployment and economical crisis, and about the gaps in the labor market, and the digitalization, and now green jobs and so on. So it's really hard to focus and have like a very clear path as an employee in the public employment service. And hopefully this time around it will be different. And I think it will be different because there is a clear message from the top that this is the way Europe is going to go. And one other point I would like to make, as a public employment service, we often follow what's going on in the economy, what's going on in our surroundings. But this time I have a feeling like we're the ones leading the way. We were the ones kind of chasing around the representatives of employer associations and telling them, well, we would like to talk about the green transition and green jobs. And they were like, who should we invite to that meeting? Because they were not even thinking about it at the moment. So I think that it's easy, really easy to build partnerships. And as it was mentioned today, these are not new tools. We use them all the time, partnerships, upskilling, kind of assessing which skills are needed. These are the things we are specialized in. We just need to focus, on doing it like with the green transition. So all I think what is needed at this moment is a real focus and determination for the public employment services that this is central to what we should do, and just do it.
Thank you very much, and I think it was very interesting to hear about these proactive, the need to be proactive and to go to the partners and to say, look, we have a problem, we have not spoken about it for many years, but let's do it now. So many thanks for that. So I will continue perhaps with a more PES specific question, as Tim has already answered a lot of questions in the Q&A directly in his speech.
Could I maybe also quickly comment on this general provocative question that you said before, because I still had my hand raised for this. What is the difference between the green transition and what was previously there? And I think from our perspective, but this I'm sure it also applies for you, the challenge is that on the one hand, the green transition requires very sector specific answers. So we see that the initiatives that also us at the Commission, we are following up. If you look at the forest sector, if you look at the construction sector, you need very different skills in response to the green transition. But on the other hand, I think it's also important to have some kind of central coordination, because otherwise you have the risk that this topic is not very visible. And of course, maybe it is dealt with by very specific sectors, but then there must be some kind of general coordination. I think to bring this together is very difficult because of this diversity of challenges in specific sectors, in specific regions. And this also makes it a bit different for me from digital transition, because I think digital transition is a bit easier to grasp. It's a bit more concrete. we saw today, we talk about green transition. It's really so broad that I think having this very specific perspective and this very broad perspective and bringing it together, this is the most challenging part. And of course, the high speed of the change. If we want to make the climate neutrality happen by 2050, if we want to reach our objectives by 2030, it means we need very rapid changes on the labor market. And we don't have a lot of time to prepare. We have to start taking more and more action. And yeah, that I just wanted to add things.
Thank you. That was, I think, very important to say and to focus on. So thank you very much. And yeah, it joins my prior comment that there is also no general question, which kind of skills do you need to train? It depends on the sectors. But following up also on this, and I don't know, perhaps Tim, you have also from the European Commission perspective, action something to add. There was one question about which type of career guidance, or how can career guidance be developed, or how does it need to be developed to exactly, yeah, I mean, a career counselor at the PES, for example, will need to have all these knowledge about all these sectors and occupation and changes going on. So is there any recommendation which can be done in this respect? I don't know who wants to take up this question, either Tim or the colleague from France or Slovenia.
Maybe I can start from a general perspective, and then the practitioners can present their point of view. I mean, I think it's important that the knowledge about what the changes will be, that they reach the people on the ground, that they reach the career counselors. And when I talked about skills intelligence, which is maybe a very abstract exercise, but I think this is exactly the information that counselors will need in order to give the right advice to people. For example, a miner who will lose his job, her job, who now is looking how to reorient him herself. And then it is important that the counselors have the information, what will be the sectors that will see a gain in employment. So to make sure that this information reaches the people that actually provide the concrete counseling.
Thank you. I don't know if the French colleagues or if the Slovenian Sandy is knowing, can add something on that.
I think that was perfect. You know, that's exactly what we do. All of our counselors, I say they are hunter-gatherers for information, and then so they really need this knowledge and information, and then use it like they use all other information to counsel their clients. I would just like to make another point. We are also facing, you know, the closing of some mines and things like that. It is important also to get the local community involved, because it's not just a question of the green jobs and green transition. It's also a question of the local labor market. So it's fine to, you know, have everything addressed at the national level, but you really need strong local cooperation to tackle these concrete issues. I guess some of our countries will face in the next 5-10 years.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if Vincent or Delphine want to add anything.
Sorry, my son. So I think it's important to these topics in the green and greenings. It's European problem and European solutions together. I'm very happy to this presentation this morning, because it's not the France problem, it's not Slovenian, it's just European, and you are built together this greening transition. It's for me very important, and it's my point of view. I'm very happy to my mission and to explain to France action, because it's the first time in my career I can conciliate my personal opinion and my professional subject. I'm a lucky woman, and I'm happy to share with you this experience. Build together the greening transition, I think.
Thank you very much, and very happy that you're lucky with helping with the greening transition. And this leads automatically to, I think, the last question I have in the Q&A. If there is any knowledge about how much training is provided through the PES. So I can, from when I did the study, I have no figures. So that was one part of the question of how much is invested. So this information is not available. Some PES told me they do training, they offer online trainings for their staff. So this is perhaps something we take the opportunity to have the colleagues from Pôle Emploi here and also Sandy from the Slovenian PES to give an insight about their experience, or if they think there is a need to bring in more training for staff. Motivation is one area where perhaps, and awareness, I think this is perhaps not necessary for Delphine anymore, but there are certainly other aspects, and perhaps we could more look, not is how much is invested, because you will not know it, but perhaps from the content wise, or what you think there would be a need to raise the awareness or to train staff, your own staff, the PES staff, in a specific way. So I don't know, would it be wise? Have you thought about having sector specialists? That could be one area to advance, but I think it's a very important question, which goes perhaps beyond training, but perhaps also organizing the services. So would be just nice to hear your views, or from the wider audience, perhaps if there is any experience to share, please raise your hand. So we start with Vincent. We cannot hear you, sorry.
Sorry, I had some technical issues. Yes. Well, as well as Delphine said, we're very lucky to participate today. I think, yeah, about what, in my opinion, and what because I work at the operational level. I don't have that that strategic view of what is going to be needed. We still have great difficulties of to provide some skills for the job market in the industrial field, in the construction field, and this is. Before talking about the green and greener jobs, it's important to talk about what the basic of the jobs are. When I was talking about Symbio a bit before, the hydrogen company in near Lyon. They don't need people to know what hydrogen is about. Well, they do need to know a little bit about it, but what is very important for them is having some maintenance machine technicians, for example, which is very difficult to find in France. I guess it's probably the same thing in other countries. So the thing is, before I don't know how to say this, but before selling green jobs, it's important for us also to sell what the basic jobs are, and well, that's my opinion, and as well for job seekers and job counselors. That's part of the job.
So thank you, Vincent. Perhaps we have a related question, a very key
just
question.
Nicola,
the last question in the Q&A.
We only have 4 minutes left. I don't know if we could perhaps, if you think we can take the question very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I would give a part of an answer. I give the question, I would give my view, and if any of you want to add something, please feel free, and then we're done. So don't you think that the matching between green competencies demand and public and private training offers is another issue to be addressed? My part of the answer would be yes, of course. And my recommendation would be, again, communicate, make partnerships with the training organizations, and communicate what kind of skills would be needed. I think in concrete examples, probably you would find in the local cooperation between the employers and the training institution, but on a wider field, what they offer. Of course, that is something which needs to be communicated also with the training institution. That would be my perspective on it. But if you have another key element of an answer, please feel free. Yes, please, Vincent.
I just have something to say about this for the question from Catherine Baum. What we see generally was what I was saying before is that for hydrogen, for example, it's what we need is industrial skills, and we need a little bit of coloration. I don't know if this is correct, from some some basic skills in gas, renewable gas, etc. But the thing is, the challenge here is to adapt the training centers programs to companies' needs, and this needs a little bit of flexibility. And from now on, we're still looking for how to do this. That's but of course, there will be. That would be absolutely great to make the matching, make the match. Yeah.
So is the same problem in bicycle. We are a little of training organization and training partner, because no bike training in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, just one in Voiron. Donc it's very difficult to match between company skills and unemployed people.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Nicola. I think we've run out of time, unfortunately, to take more questions. I want to thank the panelists, everyone that's presented today. It's been really interesting. Thanks to Nicola for your presentation of the study and for managing this conversation. Before I give a couple of key takeaways, we'd like you to just complete a short poll, if possible. The feedback, the satisfaction poll is should be up on your screen now. It's certainly up on mine. Just 8 questions, just a simple multiple choice to give your answers so that we can keep improving these events for the future. While you're doing that, I think, I mean, I'm not a topic expert, that's Nicola, but I think certainly listening to this conversation, my big takeaways are that this is clearly an urgent issue. I think we know that, we know it's urgent, and we need to move beyond the business as usual approach, and we are heading into that direction. And also what Delphine said, I think, is really important, that it's not only an urgent issue, it's a European issue. This is not going to be solved just by everybody doing their own thing, addressing these challenges as if it's for the first time in their own country or region. And there's going to be a crucial role in that context for a network like the PES network to exchange ideas, to exchange good practices, to help build that knowledge and understanding on questions like the skills taxonomy. And the PES network is going to continue to be active in that context. This year, we've had the study. There has been a working group on new forms of work, which I think was related to greening in some ways. And there's this event. And definitely there will be more activities planned looking into 2022. This is going to be a priority topic on the agenda of the PES network into the future. I wanted to flag a couple of things. A reminder, I put the link in the chat earlier to go and read Nicola's report. That was in the Knowledge Centre. Check out that report, also others. I also wanted to take the opportunity that so many people here to raise some awareness of a new output that the PES network has, which is PES Pod, a podcast where we interview, about once a month, we interview a key player from one of the public employment services around Europe. And there's been some interesting topics. I'm just going to put in the chat, if I can get back into it quickly, a link to that. Hopefully everyone can see, no, that didn't go to all attendees, sorry. there you go. Now in the chat, there should be a link to the podcast, and you'll be able to see that in recent episodes, we've been speaking to people about digitalization, the future of work, lessons from the pandemic, and I'm sure that there will be a future episode on greening at some point, probably more than one. We're also going to be speaking to the Commissioner, Nicholas Schmidt. That will be in the October edition, and very soon, I think already this week, we'll be hearing there'll be another episode uploaded looking at reforms in the Lithuanian PES. So there's lots of exciting things. We encourage you, please, to listen to that, share the news, spread it with people that might be interested, and obviously give us feedback. And we don't just want the feedback on this event, but other outputs. You can give further feedback on the study and on these how useful you find a podcast in the context of the PES network. A reminder that you will receive all the presentations and the recording that will be sent to you. It'll be made available on Circ ABC, and that will be made available for you to access through a simple link. So I think that covers everything. Lots to really interesting topic. Thank you everyone again, to all our speakers, for your input into this conversation. We know this isn't the end of the work. This is just, it's not the beginning either, because we've been talking about this for a little while, but we hope it's a step change. We need to speed up and meet the urgency of the challenges we face. So please keep in touch with each other, keep exchanging your ideas. And we, for those of us that are supporting the work of the PES Network, we're here to help you do that. So we look forward to continuing to work with you into the future. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.